The October social grants pay cycle seems to have started without the extent of glitches that we saw in September, so that's quite a relief. There were many queues. A lot of those who lined up at retailers and post offices did get their money today. Of course, this in stark contrast to what happened last month that left over 500,000 beneficiaries without their monthly stipends. Some of them waited up to 3 weeks for their money. eNCA reporter Hloni Mtimkulu was at different pay points for SASSA across Joburg today. She joins me in studio now. Hloni, a very different picture to last month?
In some ways, yes. So, as you said, the lines were there. They will always be there. I think that's just something that's characteristic of the social grant system. So, the different pay points where we went to around Soweto, Indonesia, even in town, in the CBD, and even at retailers. In some instances, there weren't even lines at all. But at the post offices, there were lines. At one post office in Shawela, the lines were moving. There were very long lines, but they were moving. At Lenasia, there were lines. At some point, they weren't moving. And people weren't really getting paid when we were there for a while. We left and we came back. In Shawela, people were being paid even though they had Soweto bits. But Lenasia, I think there were just issues there. So I think generally there was a sense that things are going well, or certainly going much better than what happened in September. There was some anxiety going into this. I mean, we spoke to people yesterday when we were still at the lines there, and even this morning, that what happened last month will again possibly happen again this month. But I think for a lot of them, especially in Shawela, there was a relief that this is not happening again. Let's hear from some of those recipients who were lucky, I guess, to say, to receive their funding for this month.
Last month izinto zihamba kahle ngoba abantu abaningi bahambe bangakholanga bathi imali ayingenanga singazi ukuthi inkinga yini, but this month sihambe kahle kakhulu.
Last month ngoba kungekho right siza sithi sizama futhi mhlambe kuzofana last month kanti hayi kuzophumelela namhlanje yonke into ihambe kahle.
Last month mabasiholela basinike 2000 abazange bafuna ukusinika lenye 30 rand ngoba basinika 2030 rands. So this month basinike 2050 abasinikanga le basishotise ngayo last month.
Sambe kahle last month mara bokugcwele sifika ngobo 3 emakhaya bona namhlanje sambe kahle elo.
So if we think back to last month, the 600,000 people who didn't get their money, it all was through Postbank's technical glitch, right? Has Postbank spoken today about this month's payment? Are they fully confident that everything's okay? Because we did hear that there were some problems in KZN today.
Yeah, so this is the thing. We woke up at around 6:30 or 20 to 7 this morning with a statement that came out saying that some recipients in the KZN region would need to go to ATMs directly and to retailers because post offices expected that there would be a cash shortage because there wasn't enough cash that was transported to those regions. We spoke to Postbank earlier today, and they did say that there seems to have been a breakdown in communication between the post office and Postbank, which technically are different entities. Well, they are different entities, but Postbank services are accessed inside post office for most
think they
people.
have good communication.
Right. So
yes.
The spokesperson did say that there was a breakdown in communication in terms of how much cash was required at the post offices, and so they then anticipated that this would be the case. But they said at the time when we spoke to them, which was at around 12 o'clock, that that situation had been dealt with, or they were dealing with that situation. And then they just confirmed that all the other issues that had arisen from last month rather, those were sorted out, and that on their side, their systems, that they were finding that people were being paid. Which is fair, but I mean, last month we were being told by Postbank that everything was fine, and on the ground that wasn't the case. So I think we just need to be a little bit careful in terms of saying, okay, it's fine, they say this, but on the ground it's a different matter. But generally, I think, even though there were some lines, there was some slowness for some people, things seem to have been going generally okay, I would say.
All right, so do we have a clip on that?
So we have, just in terms of the SASSA spokesperson, who was saying that for them, what they were picking up was that everything was going well. Of course, we had the altercation, not even an altercation, we had the situation that happened this morning in Lenasia, where, again, we tried to access the post office, and we were barred from coming in, not even into the yard of the post office, never mind going into the actual building. And, you know, we were confronted, we had our camera, they tried to grab our camera, they tried to push us around again. This is not the first time.
Yeah, I was going to say, SANEF, the National Editors Forum, came out directly flagging your experiences, which of course we caught on camera last month, of you being physically pushed out of the post office. You're saying that despite that, the same sort of thing happened today.
It did. And I think, so by the time we came back to the post office, that post office in Indonesia, and then left, things were a little bit better, but that's because SASSA officials came to that post office after they saw those scenes earlier in the day.
Right.
And those officials from the post office were spoken to, and there was a lot less of this sort of hostility, because at some point they weren't even taking our questions, our queries, and they just were just stonewalling us basically. And when the SASSA officials came, then there was a little less of that hostility. So that did happen again. We had private security called. I suspect that SAPS wasn't called today, because last month SAPS was called, but SAPS, there was nothing they could do because of the nature of the work that we do, and them understanding that we actually do have a right to be here. Be that as may, let us hear from the spokesperson of SASSA, Paseka Letsatsi, in terms of not just what happened to us, but also just the overall picture of what they are getting on the ground.
We are satisfied that the system is very stable. We have made interaction with other provinces, and the report that we have been getting is that beneficiaries of social grants are getting their pay. Even here, we just came and we were told that things are going well so far. And look, I think we basically want to apologize for the mishap or the misunderstanding which happened this morning. We also understand that the branch manager is not a communicator, he's an operational manager, and he might have misinterpreted certain things. But we basically apologize, and we spoke to him, and I think going forward we'll handle things properly. We have interacted with the branch, and so far we know that whoever is here is going to be paid. But we also say perhaps anybody who picks up a problem, they must be raised with us. We also know we have got an assurance as well from the post office and Postbank that if there were some glitches or there were mistakes in terms of payment last month or in August, that should be sorted out. The same way, like if you have a problem with your account, you are able to go to the branch and resolve it. We have been given an assurance that the matter will be resolved.
All right, so SASSA, and it really wasn't their fault, it's actually the post office. Have they apologised?
No.
Right, okay. But SASSA then saying this shouldn't have happened, we're sorry it did, and we've been assured that in terms of the payments, everything is going to run smoothly. I really hope they're right, because it was terribly stressful for those recipients who rely on that money to stay alive. Hloni Mtimkulu, thank you so much for your reporting. Let's now head down